Hello, here we are, video 3 of chapter 22. I'm going to share a screen. Try to get your book or your ebook towards example 22.6, the Corelli example. So here I'm sharing screen right now, so you can see what I'm looking at. All right, let's make this slightly bigger so it's easier to see. Right now, we're finding more different areas to modulate to. So in a minor key, one of the places they like to modulate to, as opposed to just the relative major, is to the 5. And the 5 will be 5 minor. It's not going to be 5 major. I know we have other forms of minor, but you're not trying to get, if you're in C, you're not trying to modulate to G major. That's not a super closely related key, but G minor is. So that's very common. I'm going to play this Corelli example right here and then just talk about the highlights. Again, excellent writing by Corelli, like always. Um, this is in D minor, very solidly, ends in A minor by the very, very end. The whole top line stays really solidly in D minor. There is a secondary dominant going to 4, but it's just a secondary dominant. It's not a full it's not a full modulation. This D minor sound goes all the way through the first measure of measure 8. And then the last beat of measure 8 that's when you have your pivot chord. The 1 chord is the 4 chord of the 5. So your D minor is the 4 chord of G minor. So then when you get into 9, that's when you see the accidental starting to fly. And right away, as you're trying to go to A minor, you see the G sharp. Remember, we see that raised half step. It's usually a third of a chord. So right there, you have a D chord. So that's 5 going to A minor, and then it just basically stays there all the way into the end of this phrase. So that is a classic modulation to 5. Excellent working. Here's a comparison of D minor and A minor and the chords that are common. Okay, so less common, even though you have more options in minor, there's less common between the 1 and the 5. So you only have 4 chords in common, so you got to take a little bit of care and make sure you don't get too sloppy. The highlight of when you're in a major key and you're trying to modulate to the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 6. Modulating to 2, 4, and 6, very, very common. Those are easy to get to. The problematic one, not impossible, but problematic, is trying to get to the 3 chord. If you're in C major, the 3 chord is E, and its 5 is B. And so the B chord in C is a half diminished chord or a diminished triad. So in order to make it a dominant, you're going to have to add 2 accidentals. You have to go from B, D, F to B, D sharp, F sharp. And so that could be jarring if done sloppily. So many composers from the Baroque to the classical period just avoided modulating from major to the mediate. But it happens sometimes. I'm not saying it never happens. It's probably going to take a bit of prep to get there without shocking your audience. Again, here's some chart exercises of going between 1 and 2 and 1 and 3, 1 and 4 and 1 and 6. These are really good to do if you're trying to write a tune in any major key and you want to modulate. Okay. Remember, a lot of times you come up with a melody first, and sometimes your modulation is dictated by the melody that you write. So I think in the long run that happens very much of the time. Okay, so the summary for so far: the smoothest pivot chords right here, the smoothest pivot chords that occur in the predominant function area in both keys. So chords, remember, they're predominant, not dominant, and they're the same chord in both keys, same quality and everything. When you construct a chart, you pay attention to the two key signatures and determine the chord quality. Don't try to use a pivot that has a different chord quality. That's another way of saying the first thing. Make sure the pivot is the same quality chord in both keys. Okay, keep in mind, some closely related keys are more easily reached by a different method. Sometimes you just initially tonicize it, and you confirm that by just continuing in the new key or by sequencing around. Okay, and then here's your key concepts. This is where you put that on your note card and study that slowly and slowly. It will sink in the concepts. All right. Next concept is a direct modulation. And sometimes you don't get a pivot chord. And usually in direct modulation, these are obviously very related keys. Most common thing to see is like major to natural minor or natural minor to major, something that is the same key signature, where you basically may only need one accidental to make it happen. So let's play this Bach. This is a church chorale. I know we kind of thinking, hey, it's a church chorale. We have direct modulation. Yeah, there's some pretty abrupt direct modulating in today's church music too, sometimes jarring, but this one is not. Yeah, that's not jarring at all. I mean, that he is in F major and goes all the way to F right here to the fermata in 2. It's just a straight F major, and the next chord's just right away. It's just a A major chord in first inversion, and right into D minor. And again, you're going straight to the relative minor. It's not jarring at all. It's easy to sing even. So excellent writing by Bach, like always. I'm going to skip over Cats. It's a little busy. I don't like it that much anyway. So Andrew Lloyd Webber's made more money than me, though. Let's go down to the Clementi Sonatina in C major. Okay. And this is a C major little piano thing. And it goes from C and it ends up in its 5 in the G. Right. So again, this is a pretty abrupt modulation. It is kind of introduced by a secondary dominant, but you see you're in C major all the way even into the beginning of 6, and then right here on beat 4, you basically have the 7, this leading tone going to the new key G major. So F sharp to G, and then you just stay in G major. He keeps with the F sharp, so he's establishing this key. Not really a half cadence. That's a authentic cadence right there, D to G. So that's where there's a really good abrupt modulation, even though it's fast. It flies right through, and it just has really good voice leading and predictable resolutions. And that's how you do excellent abrupt modulation. Okay. When you're trying to locate modulations, key concept: find a pivot chord, back up from the cadence. So you look at the accidentals, then back up from the cadence or the first appearance of the chromatic, and the pivot will usually be located just before the accidentals. It's usually predominant. It may be predominant function harmony, just like it says there. Keep in mind that there may be more than one chord that makes sense in both keys. Okay. In that case, choose one or label the whole pivot area in both keys if you feel like it. Probably if you had to err on the side, if you think there's more than one chord, just go to the first chord you think is, well, the first chord that is the same in both keys. That'd be the safe way to do it. And most people wouldn't be able to argue with you about it. Okay. Now let's listen to this Bach right here and look for the accidentals and see what we got.
der Bräutigam kommt, ihr Töchter Zions kommt heraus, sein Ausgang eilet aus der Höhe in eure Mutterhaus. Der Bräutigam kommt.
Very nice. So right there at the end, you can hear "Ba-da-da-da." My voice is horrible, but he's in a G minor right over here. He actually went to G minor by the second line. You can see it starts off in C minor, so he's deciding to go from C minor to G minor, very closely related. It's nothing real extraordinary. Right away, he's C minor. He got a 2-5-1 and C minor, staying there. Then we got this A natural right here. This is where things start to change. When you see that F sharp, you're like, ooh, F sharp. There's no way that's part of the 5 chord of C major. So remember that half step right there. That's just telling you right away that's probably the third of a major chord, and it sure is. You have D, A, and D, and a C over here. So you have the 5 of G minor in first inversion, and then he just stays in G minor. Okay. I would study these key concepts on your own. This is where it is. This is where really where Clendinning gets your thought focused. And I'll see you in the next video.